So clean that flywheel off. Of course, you have to be careful that you don't scar up the friction surface too much. That clutch is going to grab like crazy, and it's going to end up shuddering if we get too carried away with it. What I left off on that pilot bearing. Pilot bearing is in there pretty good. I hadn't looked for the puller tool yet. I'm going to give this one more try. Whoop! Hope that didn't hit the camera. Don't look like it. Go shooting out of there like a cannon. So that was the pilot bearing, and I showed you that I just used a regular old hex bolt. Now a lot of times I don't mind using methods that anybody can deploy, because you know, a lot of you guys might not have a pilot bearing puller or something like that. So this is just a regular old hex bolt, lock her in there, and good to go. So I killed one of the bolts, so can't reuse it. Of course, normally with a clutch, you get the clutch alignment tool. Of course, got the pressure plate, all that good stuff here. I done put the bearing, lubed it up, put it on the trans here, and got our new pilot bearing. I'm gonna have to install the pilot bearing on these ones here. Put it flush. And by the way, it's the same on both sides, so it doesn't have a front or a back. Otherwise, as this one here has got numbers on it as well. Otherwise, as a rule of thumb, always install bearings with the numbers out so you know what they are. But like I said, this one here is got it on both sides. Everything good and square in there. That's the key thing. The friction disc is marked. Most all of them. I think I've had a couple that wasn't, but most all of them are marked flywheel side. So basically goes up in there like that. Take our alignment tool, it all goes together. And of course the alignment, that clutch alignment tool, you know, the nub on it goes inside the pilot bearing. Kind of sort of goes without saying. I am guilty about one thing. A lot of times I forget to tell you, and I apologize. It just slips my mind sometimes. These bolts, there's a lot of bolts, you know, that I Loctite them in there, In this case here, I used the blue. I cleaned the bolts up, used the blue Loctite. So I don't always, like I said, I don't always say that because not like I want to keep it a secret, but I just forget to say it. These bolts here actually did have lock washers. Still don't care, still put Loctite on it. Oh, hit the camera. Okay. So good. Walk around, don't tighten up a corner. We'll look up some torque spec. So the pressure plate bolts says 13 to 20 foot-pounds. Staggered pattern. And once you get all the way around it, you just go in sequence. One of the things that I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go ahead and tie my wire off here, because the last thing we want to do is get the transmission going and then have wires fall right in the way. So kind of tie them off, get them out of your way. Make sure they don't fall in between when you're trying to start the transmission. Not a good thing. Make sure the surface areas are clean, which on this one here they are. That part of it is good, and at this point I'm actually ready to go back in with the transmission. So we'll get that transmission over here. Roll that thing back in place. See if we can find some bolts for it. You'd be able to do this job with by pulling the transmission back. You know, no ifs and spots. You can do that, but this is just a lot easier to do it this way, in my opinion. You know, just remove the transmission. That way, you want to clean something up, whatever. You got that option. You know, look at your input shaft and all that good stuff. Kind of give it a whirl. Make sure that everything looks good, sounds good. Right there is a bracket that just fell down, and that's exactly what I was talking about. You know, if that kind of stuff's not in the way, it ain't gonna fall down. Okay, careful with your sensors and all that good stuff. You go back up there. Make sure that we don't break them off something. Down a little bit with it. Actually, it's hanging up on top right now. I'm gonna flip this around. May make it a little bit easier on me. And it probably does. Yes, it does. Switch over gloves real quick. Get my bearings here, see where I'm at. Okay, I got to actually roll down a little bit more. This here is the trickiest part, of course. As you can just imagine, getting the splines and everything started. Whenever I do it, I never force anything, you know, don't use a pry bar. This should go together just smooth. As a one smooth, it should just be smooth, you know. It's got to go together right, and right now the gap is out of it, so it actually slid together. I know I'm engaged in the clutch splines. I know I'm engaged in the pilot bearing. You know, if you're too far out and you don't catch your pilot bearing just right, you know, and you start bolts up, you have a chance, or there's a small chance, but there's still a chance of pulling your pilot bearing further into the bore than what it's supposed to be. But anyway, like I said, we're almost all the way up against the bell housing, if you want to call it that. But we're ready to go in with the bolts now. Nice and warm outside yesterday. Today it's starting to cool down, as you probably done figured out by the sound of my heater running. So put all the 14 mil headed bolts back in place. And we're going to hold the starter back up there. And we're going to set the starter in place. Once I get one of them up a little bit, we can actually do one of the big bolts from down here. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and tighten that one here on the side. I'm going to tighten this up a little bit, and then I'm going to go to the other side and worry about my starter. I had an extension laying here, but I guess not. Whoa! Whoops. do have to find a starter bolt. The last person to put the starter in here just decided that one bolt was going to be good enough. So I'm gonna have to find another one of them. Okay, and I see why. I can already see why they did the way they did it. Torque the spec, of course. Good on that part. Get the old starter bolt over here. Wrong bolt. So one of the bolts is going from the backside into the starter flange, So what you want to do is you're going to start that bolt first. That way when you put the other bolt in it, that starter can twist just enough to give you a hard time to not being able to start it later on. So we want to get that lined up best we can. Now that I got that bolt actually stuck in there and the starter tightened up, I can go ahead with the lower bolt here, stick it in there and start tightening the starter up. I'd be awful shame of having everything finished underneath only to find out that now we missed half the hole in the starter, you know. Oh yeah, looks pretty good there. So in an effort to save a little bit of video time, I'm going to go ahead and pause. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hook the linkage back up. Not a big deal there. You know, get those bolts back in. Find me I still got to find a starter bolt for the top, and I'm going to do that. And I'll probably turn the camera back on by the time I put the frame in. Yeah, I'm going to turn the camera back on when I get ready for the frame. Okay, so of course reverse order, stick the frame up here, clip it in like this. I'm going to put the mounting bolts back in first. Make sure I got the right ones, and I do. Well, that damn thing sounds like it's cross-threading, but it's not. Okay. All right, so got everything on the bottom side that needs to be done on the bottom. So I'm going to pause the camera and get this thing back down. Well, actually, I guess it probably helps if I put the CV axles back in and button that up. Not going to film that part. That's easy enough. Move that camera back. I'm going to go ahead and pause that. Stick them back in reverse, you know, from what we did when we removed them. Actually, the going in is a lot easier normally, so I'll go ahead and do that. And turn the camera back on. Turn the camera on real quick. I said something yesterday, just grind you a little bevel on the bolt and the nut will go on just fine. So we are topside again. Now we got to put the big bolts back into the bell housing. The front corner is the one with the, well, there's actually two of them that have a metal bracket. The front corner is one metal bracket that holds wiring, and the other one is back there, the one that I was talking about on the starter. That's another one. That one is a 14 millimeter headed bolt, of course. Torque the spec. I'm going to say something that some of you folks probably not going to like too much, but well, as always, I don't really care. But you know, sometimes people wind themselves up about torque on the bolts, and let me assure you, if you've been doing it this for many years, I guarantee you that if you were to put a torque wrench on something, you find that it's actually really close to the torque it actually needs to be. Because most all the mechanics out there, when they do something like this, I guarantee you, you don't have to go back and check. It'll be good enough. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and bolt down the shift cable bracket. 17 mil headed bolts. I got to put the ground back on the transmission housing. It's actually sitting here on top of the transmission housing. I guess that's something good to know. If you got to change a ground cable, you know where it's located. What the heck we got going on over here? Whew. Camera's kind of in the way there, guys, but I want you to somewhat see what I'm doing, although this is really not, most of this is self-explanatory. It really is. What in the blazes do we have going on over here? Probably should have put a little bit of lube on that as well, but I'm not taking them back out. lot of them bolts out of here are pretty crusty. And plug in the actual speed sensor. I kept calling these crank trigger over here speed sensor. I don't know, you know, you start something like that, it's a habit that's hard to break. It seems like, anyway, it seems to me it seems that way. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move you guys. Well, I can't do it like this. See where I'm at. Put the ground lug back on. I will try to tie up some of the wires that was hanging loose in the first place. So much for this part. Like I said, I will try to, well, not try, I'm going to zip tie some of the wires up. Get you guys out of the way. You're kind of in my way right now, so turn the camera back off for a minute. Get all that part done, and then I got to take the car actually off the rack. I got to lift it still a little bit so I don't bend over so much, but I'm gonna have to take it off because one of the things that happened to me is the shift cable, not shift cable, the clutch cable actually came unlatched on the inside. So I'm gonna have to get it off the rack. I can't get the door open enough to lay down on the floorboard and see what's going on. Okay, so I put the few parts back up top. The battery is back on. I don't have the intake snorkel on it yet, so apparently the fact that the clutch was kind of sticking to the flywheel, and whoever got in it and they mashed on the clutch pedal, and what happened is there is a bracket that the cable connects to, and it's bolted on one side and then it's welded off on the other side, and that weld broke and that bracket just flipped up. So naturally now all the there's no more tension on that, you know, so you're really unable to pull that clutch in, that clutch lever. You really won't be able to do it because that is sheet metal, you know, it just folds up. So obviously, like I said, this work car, it's a tremendous amount of effort to get in there and get all that undone because the whole assembly have to be unbolted, and well, simply put, we're not going to do that. So what I offered to the customer, and again, I can't stress this enough, I mean, it's a work car, okay? So what I suggested, you know, I'll put a little welding cloth down on the floorboard, and I'm not going to try to get you in there and show you what I'm doing there, but put a little bit of welding cloth down and get in there with the MIG gun and kind of try to reach up there and give it a good solid tack. And I think it's doable. I think I can reach it. So that's what we're going to end up doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Pause that camera up again. Of course, had to call the customer, you know, because that's not scheduled stuff, you know. I had no clue on that one. That's just something that just came up. So anyway, I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and we'll go from there. All right, so I got the bracket. I was able to weld the bracket on. We got the clutch adjusted pretty good, and as you people already know, the proof is always in the pudding. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire that beast up and hope for the best. A little bit loud, so bear with me. So we got some clutch action. Actually, it feels pretty good. I'm not even going to adjust anymore. It feels good right where it's at. That's where I like mine. Of course, if customer wants a different spot, they'll know how to do it. So anyway, I hope that helps somebody. I'm going to finish up over here. And yes, I did put the gear oil in there. I don't know if I said that or not. 3 quarts, what the service information calls for. Check it, of course. And that's really all that I've got. I mean, you know, we're done here, and I don't have anything else to tell you. I don't know anything else I can share with you other than what I've already said. I tried to not make it as lengthy. I know a lot of you guys don't like it when I make them long, drawn out videos. I hope this is a little bit better. You know, hopefully not too long. It's not a bad job. As I said before, you know, if you're doing it at home, if you don't have tools, yeah, it's a little bit more involved. You know, you're looking at, if you hurry, you're probably looking at more like 5 or 6 hours, something like that, real time. Of course, in a shop, it doesn't take us that long, but anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody watching videos. Like, subscribe. I'm out. See you next time.